Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, I'm the founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today on the show we're chatting training and how things have changed during the pandemic. Now joining me for the chat are two colleagues from Martec Europe, a firm celebrating its 30th year in business. And they are Neil Purcell, Managing Director, and Craig Redford, Sales Director. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, James.
Morning, James.
Nice to see you both. Thanks ever so much for joining me today. Now, just a quick intro. Martec Europe are automotive consultants with sales training expertise, and they've seen the industry change dramatically, just like we all have in the last year. Neil, let me turn to you first. I mean, as I've just said, car dealers have changed incredibly, haven't they, in the last 12 months? We've seen an absolute acceleration in digital. How's the art of selling transformed for dealerships during this time?
That's a really interesting question, I think, James, because we're not entirely sure that it has completely changed. And the reason that we say that is that there was always the shift towards online, and there were always customers coming into the marketplace that wanted to transact online. But the customers that really wanted to consider their purchase and maybe have a look at various different models and make their decision, we probably believe that those customers are still waiting to come forward. And the people that were intent to purchase already have used the online facility, or they have made their purchase. But where there's someone who is yet to make their mind up, we think that they're still in the market. So what we believe going forward is that the dealerships will have a real opportunity to get back, in a sense, to what they always did and convince people of the benefits of their particular model from their particular franchise and their particular location. And the customers will then start to access that opportunity. I think all the research that I've seen recently suggests that by far most customers would prefer to have a retail experience than to completely purchase online. Well, I guess what you're referring to, in a sense, is what we have seen, though, is a real change in the number of inquiry channels that customers can come to, and perhaps more than that, a change in the bias of those inquiry channels. So where dealerships may have had a considerable amount of walk-in traffic, clearly that's completely gone, and now those people who are making their inquiries are doing so either digitally or on the telephone, and clearly the opportunity there is to then take them on to the next step. Does that in any way answer that question, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, let me turn to Craig and just ask in a little bit more detail. I mean, car salesmen now, I mean, in the past they used to people walking into the showroom, shaking their hands, giving them a cup of coffee, having the time to have a chat about the car. It's a face-to-face environment, isn't it? But over the last year, especially during lockdowns, dealers have had to do this completely remotely, be that with FaceTime, WhatsApp video, or Zoom or Teams calls. I mean, that's a very, very different skill set, isn't it? And what are the absolute golden rules, Craig, when it comes to dealing with customers in this remote sales fashion?
That's a really interesting question, James. And I think it's really, really important that salespeople have a really good understanding of how they can deliver a very consistent, positive message through that online platform. I think video's become huge, isn't it, in the last sort of year since the pandemic came about, and lots of salespeople have had to get in line with how to be the best communicator on a video with a customer, and therefore ensuring that customer gets that seamless, frictionless experience that they deserve. And I think one of the things we're certainly seeing over the last year, having to move a lot of our physical training into a virtual platform, is actually salespeople's skills have been able to deliver on that level. It's been quite tricky because they're just not being used to it. So I think there's a massive opportunity in the network, and there's a number of different retailers that we work with, groups we work with, where we've seen salespeople flourish and grow and be absolutely wonderful at dealing with that situation, whether it's a virtual appointment, a live virtual appointment with a customer, or whether it's a video they're sending. And likewise, these online inquiries that come through, these leads that come through, they've been around for quite some time now, but obviously ever increased in the last year. the communication of how we respond to those messages in terms of the words that we use, because there's no tone or body language, is even more important, isn't it? And we have to do what the customer wants us to do. And that would prove that we've shown, full genuine interest in their inquiry. So I think, lots of skill, lots of behavioural opportunity to help businesses, certainly. And I think the network has adapted terrifically well in the last year. Groups we work with have adapted terrifically well with all of this. And I think it goes to show, some businesses are, had great years last year, didn't they? Their performance was absolutely fantastic, even with the pandemic. So, long may that continue. And I think when we reopen on the 12th, when dealers reopen on the 12th, we'll find that March will be April and May combined, maybe, and we'll have that massive opportunity to catch up. Yeah,
that's certainly hope so. Neil, Martec, as we'll come on to in a moment, obviously at 30th anniversary, the firm's been around a while and seen some many changes. Do you think the changes we've seen in the last year are here to stay forever?
Yes, I think there's going to be a big change in a lot of respects, and it's all going to be very similar in other respects. And perhaps I should explain that answer in a bit. We've always known that really good performing dealerships maximise their inquiry that they get, and they've really worked hard to exploit each of their sales channels. What we've now got is a new sales channel, this digital sales channel, which, as Craig mentioned, isn't brand new. It's been around for a while, but it's suddenly accelerated. So managers these days are going to have more things to focus on. I guess that sort of plugs into the idea of high performance teams have focus in lots of different areas all at the same time. And a manager these days is going to need to ensure that the salespeople are on the top of their game in the showroom, top of their game on the telephone, top of their game on the email, top of the game on their video. And that means that the customer is likely to get a better and better experience as time goes on, irrespective of which channel their inquiry starts. So where I think there's going to be similarity in terms of what we used to do is that the customer is going to be engaging with the business, and as Craig alluded to earlier, the business is going to have a real clear idea of what they want to achieve from that first interaction. And then the customer is going to select, and the salespeople are going to try and encourage the customer to select the next step on this journey. And when they get to that next step of the journey, the skills of the salespeople are going to be once again tested. So whether some organisations will split the disciplines, so there'll be a telephone team perhaps, or an electronic team, digital team, and a showroom team. That's yet to be decided, which is the best way forward with that. But I think the customer experience is going to still go through most of those steps, because there is always going to be a need, we believe, for customers to be influenced to buy the best car they can, and the best car for them that they can. And so sometimes that needs an expert in the organisation to help them decide which is the best of the models that are available to them.
I think you've made a very, very good point there, and it's something that I've heard from a number of dealers that I've spoken to recently. With the April the 12th reopening coming up fast, they're concerned that actually their showroom staff, their sales staff, are going to struggle juggling these email inquiries, the messages that are coming in via instant messenger on their site, with people walking into the showrooms. Craig, do you think this is going to be a big challenge for dealers when they reopen? Because I mean, let's rewind a little bit. We go back to when we used to judge our used car awards. I mean, towards the back end of 2019, these email inquiries that we were sending as mystery shoppers weren't really being treated with quite the level of importance that they should have had. I mean, if they slip back, if dealers slip back into that, I mean, they're in danger of losing sales, surely.
I think picking up what Neil said there, having clarity of purpose on each inquiry channel is fundamental, isn't it? And I think salespeople have had the opportunity in the last year to hone their skill set by dealing with these digital inquiries. So And I think they've become far more engaged with them now because they've seen the outputs in the last year. So I think, when the showrooms open on the 12th, you've got, customers coming into the business, but actually they're going to be appointed customers to the business. So they're going to be in a bit more control of their schedule, I suppose, their diary, the way that they handle and prioritise their customers throughout the day, because essentially the customers that come in are going to be the people that are being appointed, whether it's on the phone or online. And the people that inquire online, the salespeople, you'd like to think, because of the encouragement in the last year through the pandemic, have heightened their skills and heightened their behavioural skills to actually realise these customers are in a much better place maybe than they were when you did that little evaluation on your used car thing over a year ago, like you mentioned. So I don't think, I think there'll be businesses, of course, that adapt to it quickly. I think there'll be businesses that have adapted quickly already. And I think most salespeople within those businesses will be able to juggle those inquiries effectively and well, as long as they, manage their time properly. I think there'll be some businesses that maybe haven't adapted during pandemic, that maybe haven't flexed across to digital in the way that maybe some of these other companies have. And they may find that some of their salespeople do struggle with this sort of multi-channel opportunity coming in. And I think, going back to Neil's point earlier about the managers, it's imperative, that the sales managers, the transaction managers, and even the managers above are driving that performance on inquiry channels, on all those inquiry channels, to ensure that their team are on point as best they can and giving the customer the service that they deserve throughout whichever way they're coming in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Neil, let's talk a little bit about this 30-year milestone. As we've said, an incredible achievement. I mean, perhaps we could give those watching a bit of a potted history of Martec.
The 30 years in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, wow, fantastic. So Martec originally was an Australian consultancy business, and they decided to set up a subsidiary in the UK, which happened, as you can imagine, in 1991. The business at that point was really focused on only one thing, which was to maximise the amount of sales that car salespeople were getting from telephone inquiries, because after extensive research, what they found was that salespeople did a pretty ordinary job of converting customers into sales. And without trying to get off the point, you mentioned earlier about the mystery shops that you used to do on web inquiries. They had a poor result. Well, a few years ago, that was exactly the same with telephone inquiries, and the dealerships had all their habits were all centered around how to deal with customers in the showroom, and the telephone was the new big thing. And so 30 years ago, when we came to the UK, we tackled that first issue, because quite frankly, we wanted to give our customers a really quick return on investment. And we tackled the issue of the underperformance, if that's the right expression, of how to convert people that are telephone with an inquiry into a sale. And over the last 30 years, we've changed and developed and evolved new strategies which now cover things like email. Over that time, we've been really fortunate to work with some fantastic retailers. I think Craig in a moment is going to talk about some of the people that we've been talking to recently about that 30-year experience. But it's been a continual change. And before coming to this video today, one of the things I thought about was, is there any constants that I can talk about, or anything that we've learned or I've learned in the 30 years, or Martec have learned in that time? And it really is that there is always going to be change, whether it's huge change or whether it's relatively minor change, almost is irrelevant. What is definitely for sure is you've got to keep your eye on tomorrow just as much as today, in order to make sure you're maximising your opportunity. And I just wanted to pick up on one of the things you just asked, Craig, in terms of when we get back to retail, if the dealership's performance on web inquiries drops off, I think actually the bigger danger, in a sense, is that the skills that we used to have in dealing with customers in the showroom may well have been diminished. And so just as much as they need to make sure that they've learnt these lessons of the last few months, they also need to revisit the lessons that they used to do and make sure that the customer experience is absolutely rock solid when the customer comes in.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be quite a challenge, isn't it, for people there? I mean, not knowing, do you shake hands? Is it still elbow bumps, when people walk in? I mean, people's interaction with other people has certainly been something that a skill that's probably diminished in the last 12 months. Thank you for that, Neil. I'm going to turn to Craig, and I'd like, because you've touched on that point of these people that you've been chatting to, and you very kindly sent me some of these videos and some of the stuff that these guys have been saying about you. You've been absolutely fantastic. I mean, chatting to the likes of Dash Gupta, Chris Wiseman, and some other great leaders in the industry. Craig, perhaps you could summarise some of the stuff that they've been saying to you as part of those interviews that you've been doing.
Yeah, I think it's been amazing, really. Quite frankly, it's we were humbled to have the opportunity to talk to some of these people that we've worked with over the years. And when I joined Martec in 2006, some of these customers that I've spoken to, in the last sort of month or so, we hadn't worked with and haven't worked with since maybe 2006, but actually some we have. And I think it's been wonderful to be able to talk to people like Dash and, as you mentioned, Chris Wiseman. Stephen Eagle's a very big customer of ours. He runs his own group, as you know, and we're heavily involved within his business. But I suppose, having the time to spend 20 minutes, half an hour like we are today to have a conversation around, real positive news stories about how Martec have impacted their business or impacted them as individuals over the years that they've used us. It's been great to hear, and there's been some wonderful stories. Those videos that we've done, we're posting a couple of those every single week online on social. For people to look at and to view, but the stuff we're getting out of there is great. Whether it's a personal individual's improvement in their skill set, which has helped them sell more cars, or whether it's been a manager that's taken on board the Martec training, whether it's telephone online, whether it's process training, and they've had an impact with their team, or whether it's been a director or a CEO of an organisation that's sort of spread Martec within the whole group and seen impacts in divisions across their business. So, we can only thank those guys enough. There's more to come. We've got loads lined up, and some of the interesting stuff at the back of those interviews, which we haven't shared just yet, but we will soon, is we asked a lot of these senior leaders about being a high achiever and how they became a high achiever. What ingredients did they have? What were their goals that they set to become the best people they could be in their jobs? And I think there's some really good, interesting stuff to come out after this 30-year anniversary, which we will share with everybody. So, but I can only say thank you to all the people we've spoke with so far. We look forward to more to come.
Yeah, I bet that was quite inspiring chatting to all those people. Neil, I understand that you've been changing the way that you do deliver the service that you do to target these slightly larger groups than the family businesses. I mean, again, perhaps you could just tell me a little bit about how Martec changes the way it provides its services for these businesses, depending on their size.
So we believe that the culture of a business is one of the things that customers like to use to differentiate a business between one supplier and another. And in a franchise environment where there could be lots of different suppliers of the same brand, we believe that the individual dealerships or the individual branches needs to have a personality, and the groups have a personality. So fundamentally, we believe that there's a future for all different shapes and sizes of dealer organisations, providing that they're really good in their environment. And whether that's a national environment or whether it's a more regional environment, then we believe that there is a place for those dealerships, because it will be determined by the customers as well. So they'll be good because the customers think they're good, not necessarily because someone from the outside thinks they're good. So taking on board that concept, one of the things we do is we make sure that the culture of a business comes through all the training and the processes that we help managers take on board. So if you're a relatively local organisation with maybe one branch, then you have something to say to your customers just in the same way as a multinational. And what we believe is we need to embed that DNA of the organisation into the training, so that when we call it the point of contact, so that whether it be service or sales point of contact, the salesperson or the service advisor, or anyone in the organisation for that matter, when they touch the customer, then the customer gets that impression and that appreciation of what the whole culture of the business is all about. So that means we don't have manuals on the shelf that we say, this is how to do things. What we do is we take the best practice that we've learned over time, and we work with the organisation and say, this is your culture, this is the best practice. How do we bring those two things together? We're very lucky at Martec that we process literally millions of customer inquiries, and one of the things that we've done for the entire 30 years of our existence is we've listened to particularly telephone inquiries, and now we watch videos, and we read emails, and we look at the interaction between a customer and the organisation. And what that gives us is a really deep insight to what works and what doesn't. So in 2019, I think it was about 3 million interactions. So we pretty much heard all the things that went well, and unfortunately all the things that didn't go so well. And we can define, if you like, the way that customers want to be treated and what does work and what doesn't work, and how the culture can come through using that information.
Craig, perhaps without giving away too many trade secrets, I mean, maybe you could touch on some of those things that do work well that you've noticed from those interactions.
Yeah, well, we've in terms of building a program for customers, we create this academy concept. So picking up on what Neil said there around weaving in the culture. The culture obviously is fundamentally important to build into the program, so we actually match their expectations and their individual teams' expectations within their business. So, the academy concept we've started to build for some businesses that we've already started to use for some time, and in particularly Stephen Eagle's one of those examples. I think it's evident that by building in the culture, by building in the DNA, by building in the personality of the business into those best practices that we've obviously inherited and used over all the years we've had and evolved, has had some huge, tremendous impacts, whether it's current employees within the business, whether it's new, fresh recruits that are joining the organisation, because it's really important that, the people in the business are the face of the business, isn't it? So I think, for us, building an academy for our customers that fits their culture and their people has great impact when it comes to customers experiencing or visiting or inquiring to their organisation. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. But I think that's for us, it's more about that in the future going forward now, because we see that working even more than it ever did before. And
Craig, what do you think the future of after sales and sales looks like in car dealerships, considering the huge shifts we've seen in the last 12 months?
I think, we've touched on a fair bit of stuff already in terms of how digital's had an impact in automotive, and online's been around for a little while. So I think, that's going to carry on, isn't it? And that's only ever going to increase. And what with electric vehicles coming in and having a big impact in automotive, and that's also only ever going to grow in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. So I think, businesses that, are adaptive, that are flexible, that have the will and want to learn and develop their businesses and their people in different ways to keep up with the evolving way that the industry is growing will be the ones that survive and do a fantastic job. So survival of the fittest, or whatever we want to call it, organisations that are in a place that can do that will do really, really well. So I think in terms of the future, I think our business, the Automotive Network, it's a fantastic organisation. It's a fantastic business to be in. Diverse. It's so different to lots of other organisations and retail out there. So I think, as long as the businesses keep the core purpose of DNA, the core purpose of what automotive is all about, the core purpose of giving a frictionless, fantastic customer experience, are showing genuine interest in all their customer inquiries, building in great value and reasons to visit the business on whatever channel of inquiry that comes through, those businesses will succeed and do really well. And I think after sales, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out with less petrol and diesel cars and more electric cars and all the technology that goes on with it. So I think fascinating times, James. I think lots is going to change, and it still will do, won't it? And I think you've just got to keep up with it and keep ahead of the curve. Yeah,
we try to do that every day. It's certainly been interesting covering the industry over the last few months, and very nice to see just how resilient it's been, I think. Neil, finally, perhaps you could just tell us what's next on the agenda for Martec. I mean, you've got a 30-year history. What's next for you guys?
So I want to just pick up on your conversation, your topic about resilience there, just for a second, James. I think you're absolutely right that I and Martec are exclusively motor industry based, so we're only looking out of that lens. But what an amazing way that the whole industry, and I think you coined this right at the beginning of the pandemic, it pivoted the way things, the way it did things, recognised this unbelievable change that was on the horizon, or at least this pressure to change more quickly than before, and pivoted. And we watched with enthusiasm the videos that you've had, and how some of the retailers have gone from being a traditional retailer, a premises-led retailer, to actually something completely different, which is a hybrid of internet, digital, and premises. So I think it's been amazing. Perhaps that's been borne about by the fact that the margins are very low. So the skill of being flexible and adaptive is well ingrained in the industry. What's next for Martec is a fantastic opportunity for me to say. So our ambition is to get to the point where we can teach all customer-facing people to help their customers enjoy and drive the best car they can. And our aim is to do that in just one lesson. So if you think there are things in life that you learn with just one lesson, and if you put your hand on a hot plate, you probably don't do that too many times more often than that. But our ambition is to get our knowledge over to someone in just one session. Craig mentioned the videos, and you kindly mentioned the videos earlier. I was astounded at the number of these super high performing people that are now running dealer groups and everything, but can remember some of the very, very basic information that we gave them, and as you know, 30 years ago. It's amazing. So if we can get all of our training to that one touch point where we just have to tell them once and then that's it, from then on for the future, they perform to a much higher level. That's our goal. That's Martec's goal.
Sounds fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you both. Thank you very much for those kind comments about what we've been doing too. And I wish you the best of luck for the next 30 years.
Thanks.
Thank you, James. Thanks so much.
Thanks indeed.
Super. Great to chat to Neil and Craig there. So for more Car Dealer Lives like this one, you can log on to cardealermagazine.co.uk and click on the live tab at the top of the page. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.